What does manhood mean to you?
If you think of the word caregiver, I think you grow up and that's very much sort of something that is associated with women, right? I viewed my mom as a caregiver, right? And it's not until I am an adult and I say, oh no, my dad was a caregiver too. He was just a caregiver in a different way, right? He might not have been the person I went to when I needed a hug, but he was taking care of me in a whole bunch of ways that I just didn't understand. So I think responsibility, and that is tied to taking care of people.
Hi, and welcome to another edition of King Crush Thursday, the series where we highlight and uplift Black men, because frankly, not too many people are doing it. My name is Val Gay, and I'm super excited to talk to this brother today. He has a varied career. He has over 15 years experience at a major foundation in policy and research. He also has international experience, and he is still a current active Army reservist as a paratrooper and a civil affairs officer. Whew, that's a lot. His name is Mr. Chris Arlene. Hi, Chris.
Good afternoon. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good.
Oh, this is great. And I'm so glad that you're here because we are, with every conversation, putting another wedge in the door of opening up the very narrow and myopic portrayal of Black men in the world, really, particularly as we see in the media. And while we know that Black men are as myriad as there are Black men walking the planet, somehow the narrative ends up being very narrow, and we just want to widen it because ultimately my goal is for a young king who may or may not have positive Black male role models to be able to come to this repository, see the same 6 questions answered by so many different positive and successful Black men, and hopefully find guidance there. And then for the rest of us who are neither male or even Black, for us to be able to come to this repository and again see the same questions answered by so many different people and hopefully have our minds changed and opened and widened. And so I am so glad that you're here to contribute to this. And let's get started with the first question, which is, what does manhood mean to you?
So this is a tough question. And again, something I think that could change. And I think when I think about manhood, the first word that comes to mind is responsibility. You know, like I had the absolute privilege of having the best father you could have. My father, his name was Herb Arlene. He was born in 1935, spent his whole life in North Philadelphia. And, you know, the day-to-day example that he provided of, you know, maybe not always having the right words or being the most vocal person, especially when I was younger, but just that person who was there every day, who, you know, took everyone to school, kept the household running, anything that needed to be done on a daily basis, he did, and he did it consistently. And now that I am a husband and a father, and I find myself, you know, unintentionally doing the same things that my father did and sort of being that person around the house to just do the things that need to get done to take care of people. And I think that that's the second thing, like the responsibility is very much about taking care of other people. And I don't think that men actually learn about that or hear about that. Right. You sort of, if you think of the word caregiver, I think you grow up and that's very much sort of something that is associated with women, right? I viewed my mom as a caregiver, right? And it's not until I am an adult and I say, oh no, my dad was a caregiver too. He was just a caregiver in a different way, right? He might not have been the person I went to when I needed a hug, but he was taking care of me in a whole bunch of ways that I just didn't understand. So I think responsibility, and that is tied to taking care of people.
That's wonderful. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you for that nuanced answer. And so, who and or what is important to you?
So the very first thing is my family, right? That is the number one thing that is important to me, not just my wife and my son and my mom, but my extended family here in Philadelphia. I've got two sisters. I've got a myriad of nieces and nephews, and a myriad of great nieces and nephews. And it's like, it's one thing once the kids start calling you OG, but then now when I'm like, oh, my great nephew's a freshman in college, right? That's where I'm like, okay, it's, middle age is settling in here. But they are important. Because the other, just again, another lesson that I had the privilege of learning from my dad was the importance of family, right? And the importance of folks staying connected, folks supporting each other, and understanding that, you can't pick your family, but you can try to make your family work. And it's not always the easiest thing to do. But when we've had our tough moments, I just can't imagine how I would have gotten through certain things without, having a strong family to fall back on. And then when I think about it now, I mean, I've got a 15-month-old son, his name is Elijah, and it's just, as cliched as it sounds, it is all the life-changing things that everyone else will say and think and feel. And so now I find myself with much more of a motivation around, making sure that he is taken care of in the way that I was taken care of. And then I think another thing that is just very important to me are values. I find myself, like I've had my wife's name is Edisa, and we are very different, right? I'm an introvert, she's an extrovert, the yin and yang, right? Like the, opposites attract and all of that. And sometimes, when you're in a relationship, when you've got to compromise, it's not always easy. But when there is the value of, hey, I value being a good partner, right? I value being someone who takes care of people. I value being someone who is reliable. Then that is what helps me do the things that in a given moment, I may not want to do, right? I may not want to get up at 5:30 in the morning, but if I'm going to live up to my values, that's what it's going to require, right? And just that is, kind of living with a values-based approach, or at least understanding the values that are most important to you, and sort of, at least for me, once I've sort of became more self-aware of what values I hold dearest and how they influence my life and kind of shape me on a day-to-day basis, that has been, illuminating, and it sort of really kind of helped me clarify what's important and what's not important.
Got it. Got it. That's awesome. Excellent. Thank you so much. So, Chris, how do you want us to see you?
So this is another tricky question. I think I want to be seen, and this is sort of related to, I think, to kind of thinking about manhood. I think, my therapist explained to me the importance that for men, very often, to stereotype a bit, that we want to be seen as capable, right? It's like Kendrick Lamar has this line where he says, to keep it 100, I'd rather you trust me than to love me, right? And just this ability to feel capable and trusted, and have people look at you and say, I know he's going to do what he needs to do. I know he's capable of doing what he needs to do. And I find that is definitely something that drives me in my personal relationships and my professional work. But I also want to be seen as someone who is willing to be uncomfortable and willing to grow, right? Not someone who, I joined the Army Reserve at 34 years old. That, wasn't necessarily a thing that made a lot of sense to my family and friends, but it's something that made sense to me. And it's something that has definitely made me a better professional, a better husband, a better father. And I think just as we grow and evolve, being willing to do things that you're not good at, that are outside of your comfort zone, but that are going to help you continue to grow. And then I think for me, it's also just to be perfectly honest and transparent. So I think of myself as a Black man with a white mom, right? I sort of used to make this joke that I was like biracial before Barack, back when it wasn't cool, right? I'd be like, go to the gallery in 1990 with your white mom and have that experience, right? But it is a thing that is, sort of understanding the wide range of the diaspora, right? And kind of, as you said, the idea that, and I know when I was younger and even going into college, I think, I felt a lot of insecurity about my racial identity and my Blackness, because, as you said, there were these kind of very stereotyped, limited ideas of what it meant to be a Black man. And it was hard to see myself in those things, right? Or you do things to try to fit into those that are not authentic and not who you actually are. And so I think just being seen as someone who is, the grandson of the first Black state senator, who is very, every day I just feel very privileged to be a part of that legacy. Even being an Army paratrooper, I've got a bunch of stickers on my gear, and the most important one is the logo of the 555th Infantry Airborne Infantry Regiment. So the triple nickel was the first Black airborne unit in the United States Army, and they wouldn't be. They were put together in the World War II era, but no generals in the European theater wanted to use them. So they actually got sent out to the Pacific Northwest, and they became the first ever smoke jumpers, because Japan was sending like these big sort of gas bomb balloons over the Pacific. They were hitting Oregon, right, hitting forests. And so they were the first people ever to jump out of planes and fight fires, right? And so even that is there's just the ability to feel the connection to those men back in the 40s and me in 2025 as a paratrooper, and feel that direct connection. And so it's just something I'm very proud of, and something I acknowledge that hasn't always been the easiest to sort of feel secure in, because, I don't, fit many of the stereotypes that we are forced to try to navigate.
I got it. Excellent. Thank you. Thank you for bringing them into this conversation. It's really beautiful. Thank you. And so, Chris, what is your epic dream?
My epic dream. My epic dream is a Philadelphia where people are more interested in getting things done than looking like they're getting things done. Oh man, it's like we have, people will say this all the time, but Philadelphia has so much potential, and it's like we just can't get out of our way, and so much of it is driven by, sort of like middle school cafeteria dynamics that, people think, oh, you grow up, you're an adult, you're gonna, it's like, no, you can basically all of life lessons, all the core lessons are probably learned by the time you get to ninth grade, just from going to the school cafeteria on a day-to-day basis. And if we just had a city where more folks were interested in being workhorses and not so consumed with being show horses, I think we would, we would take off. And so I think, more people just being interested in getting things done and not being as interested in needing the credit, which is not an easy thing. But I think that would make a huge difference in a city that has so much potential, is already a fantastic city, and that you, I, and many other people care deeply about.
Hear, hear, hear. Yes, yes, yes. I hear you. That's awesome. Excellent. Thank you. So you've been really answering question 5 all along implicitly, but I'm going to ask you explicitly. Mr. Chris Arlene, who are you?
Yeah. So I was thinking about this. There's like one way of answering it, right? Which is like, I'm a dad, I'm a Philadelphian, I'm a soldier. But I think really I am someone who is trying to make the most out of this wonderful opportunity that we have to be here in this time and now. And I think that as I get older, I am learning that the best way to do that is to realize, to try to focus on less things and to try to do those things as well as you can. I'm talking a lot about my father at his funeral. No one talked about what he did for work. The church was packed and everyone talked about the conversations he had, the way that he made people feel, and just realizing that I am someone who is trying to, live my life on a daily basis, focusing on the things that are actually most important to me, while still also trying to make an impact, in our city, and in our world. And trying to be a great dad and trying to be a great husband and a great friend and a great brother and a great uncle and all of these things. So I'm someone who's trying to balance a lot of responsibilities, but also keep my eye on the prize.
Mm-hmm. I hear you. I hear you. Thank you. Thank you for that. Actually, you gave basically the definition of the type of man that we want to be included into this repository, through your description of your father. It's really beautiful. Thank you. And so here we are already at question 6, which is there anything that I should have asked you that I didn't, or you wanted me to ask you that I didn't? In other words, what did I miss?
I would say the other thing that I have learned, is that I would just want to put out there is just how much of a strength vulnerability can be. So in my work life, even, right, sort of working with a team that I lead, I'm the boss, right? I've got, folks who may expect me to have all the answers, but in a professional setting, just even being able to acknowledge, like, I don't know what to do here, right? I don't know what the best answer is. What do you think, right? Sort of being able to acknowledge mistakes, right? I think men in particular, because we feel the pressure to be capable, because we want to be judged as being proficient and effective, and do not want to be judged as being incapable or being a failure. It can be very hard to, have the security to say, I don't know, to admit mistakes. But in doing so, like, that's what actually makes you a good leader, a good teammate. That's what makes people feel that they can trust you, that folks can have your back. And not even in a romantic sense, but even like in my male friendships, like I can remember 10 years ago, a friend of mine, we were talking, he was being vulnerable with me, talking about what was going on in his life. And in my head, I was thinking, why is Omar telling me all of this? Can't we just talk about sports or music or something light and fun? And now I look back and I say, man, I mean, he was, showing me, he was mentoring me, right? And the ability to actually acknowledge, grief, loss, insecurity, challenges that we may be having in our personal relationships. It's just something that we don't learn. It's not a skill that we gain growing up. And it's sort of like, men get to 40 years old, and that's the first time we're thinking about our emotions, what our triggers are. And I just think that the more self-aware we can be, and the more we can think about, just being willing to admit that we don't know it all, that we might need help, can just have benefits in all aspects of our lives.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you for bringing it up. It's really important. And I'm just really grateful. You said so many important things today. Again, loved hearing you talk about your father and the importance of trying something different, even if no one else understands you at the time. And then later it's like, oh, that's so cool what you're doing. Like really following that internal voice is so wonderful, the things that you learned. And so I'm just so grateful that you've been here today. I'm grateful for your presence in Philadelphia, especially, and in the world. And I honor you, my king. And I pray that your epic dream really does come true sooner rather than later. My goodness, I hope sooner rather than later. And I'm just really grateful for you being here. So thank you so much.
Well, Val, thank you for the invitation. Thank you for doing this series, and thank you for all that you do in Philadelphia. And I just appreciate it, and I feel privileged to be a part of it.
Awesome. Thank you. And stay right there, because I want to thank the audience for joining us. I hope that you enjoyed this conversation as much as I did. And I hope that you will be like me and go and Google the triple nickel. That was what they were called, right? Triple nickel.
Yep.
Let's learn more about our history, especially in a time where it seems our history is on being threatened to be erased. And so let's honor those who came before us. And if there is a positive and successful Black man in your life who you want to hear from and see highlighted in this forum, please click the link below in my bio, fill out the nomination form, and we'll take it from there. I always say success. I don't count success as what someone does for a living. You can have such a varied career as Chris or not. It really is about the content of the man's character. My only two caveats about a person's line of business, if you will, or life's work is one, that is legal, and two, not hurting anyone. Other than that, I'm kind of open because we really are interested in the content of people's character. As Chris was talking about his father, people talked about the impact that he had on them, the conversations, starting with the nuclear family and then moving out to the wider community. Those are the brothers that we really want to highlight here and include in this repository, who often go unsung and sadly sometimes unseen. But we want to shine a light on them, and we want to hear from them. So please, next week, stay tuned for yet another amazing king. And please remember to spread love and have a great day. Thank you so much. And Chris, thank you so much. That was really wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you, Val.